Hello everybody. In today's video, I'm talking about ordering fractions. Now you already know how to compare fractions to determine which one is larger or smaller between two different fractions. Now we're going to look at a list of them and you have to order them from the least to the greatest or from the greatest to the least. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to ask you to do it from the least to the greatest. Okay, so I'll write that down here first, least to greatest. So if you're going to do that, you want to find the smallest one first. And right now, the first thing you can do is you know that there's a way to compare fractions by looking at the numerators first or the denominators first. Denominators is the easiest, so let's look at that first. If you have two numbers with the same denominator, then it actually makes it really easy. So, look at these. Two fractions have the same denominator. So, if you have 2/3 and 1/3, well, 2/3 is larger than 1/3, so I'm going to put the 2/3 over here and the 1/3 over here. Notice I've left some space because I don't know if any one of these numbers, the other numbers, will fit in between or not. So 2/3 and 1/3. Okay, now you have to compare the other ones. Are there any numbers that have the same numerator? Oh, nope. There isn't. Okay, so now you have to think about things a little bit. And one of the things you can think about here that I always like to say to students is you can either do the equivalent fraction, the cross multiplying quickly, and if you're comparing these two fractions, you can see that 5 times 5 is 25, and 10 times 2 is 20. So this is going to be smaller than this one. Now, the thing is that I want you to think about one other thing. You know that this is a larger fraction. Now, 5 over 10 is the same as 1/2. And 2/5 is actually less than 1/2 because half of 5 is 2.5. So you could tell that right away. This is going to be smaller. So let's try and put that in here for a second. 2/5 and 5/10. Where would that, let's see if the 5/10 in the second, we know it's going to be larger, it's going to be over here. But let's work with this first. Make sure it is before that 1/3. Is 2/5 smaller than 1/3 or greater? Well, let's cross multiply. 3 times 2 is 6, and 5 times 1 is 5. Oh, this number is smaller than this number. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put 1/3 way over here and then 2/5. So I'm going to erase and put 1/3, and I know that 2/5 goes here. Okay, it's going on that side. I am going to double check now with something. 5 times 2 is 10, and 3 times 2 is 6. So this is larger than this. So far, we're good. All right, that 5/10, does it go here or does it go here? 5/10 is 1/2. Is 2/3 greater than 1/2 or less than 1/2? Well, think about it. What's 1/2 of 3? Well, that's 1.5. So 1.5 is half of 3, and 2 is greater than that. So 5/10 is 1/2, which is smaller than this, 5/10, because 2/3 is greater than 1/2. Okay, so now I've got the 2/5 and I've got the 5/10, and now all you have is the 7/8. Now, is 7/8 greater than 1/2? Because this is sort of right in the middle. Well, yes, it is, because 1/2, like an eighth, it would be 4/8 is 1/2. So it's going to be greater than this one. So I'm going to leave this here. Is it greater than 2/3? Well, let's see. Let's try it here at least and see. And let's do our check. 8 times 2 is 16. And 3 times 7 is 21. So remember the 16 and the 21. Oh, yep, 21 is greater than 16. So it goes in that order. There you go. So if you didn't do your comparing fractions last time and to see which one is larger and which one is smaller, and you weren't too sure, go back and practice that because that will help you with this. And this is the order from the least to the greatest. Let's do another one from the least to the greatest. And this time, I think I gave you numbers in your sheets that would actually show, that gives you a really neat pattern that I picked for you guys. All right, so let's look at these very quickly. Now, this pattern you see is 2/3, 3/4, 5/6, 6/7, and 7/8. Can you see the pattern here? It's always one less, the numerator is one less than the denominator. 3/4, 5/6, 6/7, and 7/8. Now, think about that for a minute, because if you have 2/3, and I'm going to show you very quickly on here what would happen if you have 2/3 versus 3/4. So this is 1 right here, okay? And this, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to put the 2/3 in here. So I've got 1/3 and I've got 2/3. Now there's 2/3. What's missing up here is pretty big. So now it says, the next one it says is 3/4. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's do 3/4. Look what happens. Look at the distance between this to 1 and 3/4. And then it asks for 5/6. And then it asks for 6/7. And then it says 7/8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is 5/6. Sorry, this is 5/6. And this is 6/7. Yeah. So notice what's happening, which is the largest. You can see right away, this is the largest, right? Okay, we didn't ask for 1, but what I wanted you to see was the piece that's missing in each. This is the largest piece, so this will be the smallest total here, okay? Compared to 1 when you're thinking about that. So think about what's happening. Here I have a tenths, and look at that. That would be 9/10, and this is, right here, 12ths, and that's 11/12. So you've got these ones, though, which I've asked you to compare, and you can see that 7/8 is larger than 5/6, which is larger than 4/5, which is larger than 3/4, which is larger than 2/3. So think about what is happening. And in this case, it was easier to think about, well, how much of a distance from 1? How much am I taking away from 1? And that would tell you this piece is much larger that I'm taking away than this piece. So this has to be larger. Okay, so let's write these in order then, and then you've got it, all right? So in this case, the 7/8, oh, it's already in order, it looks like, because the 2/3 is smaller than the 3/4, which is smaller than the 5/6, which is smaller than the 6/7, and which is smaller than the 7/8. So in fact, this is already in order. Okay, so that's another way to think about these. You don't always have to go right to let's calculate all the time. Think about what's happening with the pieces as well. And that's what I really want you to be able to do, is to be able to think about what is going on with the numbers, not just memorizing, my teacher told me to do it this way or that way, or I told you to do it this way or that way. I want you to think about what's happening with them. All right, have fun with these. There's lots of questions that I've given you, and you should be able to just challenge yourself a little bit and compare your answers with others too, because sometimes these are pretty tricky for some students. Thank you.